All right, brethren, that was a recording, for those of you that are still online, that was a recording from last night's Bible study and this morning's Sabbath service that I played while I went and visited some brethren across town in a small congregation where they meet under a certain little group, and I just fellowship with them once or twice a year. And I went over to ask them to put some prayers up regarding Dale Karikas and his brother. And I have Dale on the telephone line with me, and we're going to talk. Let me bring my shot in here closer to us. And I'm going to talk to him live so that those of you who are here or who may be here later as we play a recording can get a little better understanding about what's happening with Dale and his brother and a little bit of a need for help they have. And if some of you are able and after you hear Dale talk would like to help Dale get to Alabama, where I've got a trailer he and his brother could live in, then that'll be nice if any of you want to help us out in that, help Dale and his brother out in that way. Dale, I'm going to go ahead and bring you online here with me. How are you doing this Sabbath, this regular Sabbath day?
Fine.
Good. And Dale, you and your brother are living in the state of New York, I think in a city that starts with an H. Is that right?
Oh,
Yeah, some of the fellows where I went today asked me, what city is he in? You know, where's he trying to come in New York from to Alabama? And I could only tell them it starts with an H. I'm not sure what the name of that town is.
yeah.
If you don't mind telling us what that town is.
It's Holtzville.
Hopesville?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Hope like in the Bible, hope, H-O-P-E?
It's Holtzville.
Oh, okay. Is that like with a K instead of a P, H-O-K-E?
H-O-L.
Dale, there was a little noise there. I got a H-O-L.
Holtsville.
Okay, so pronounced like Hotesville.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you, David. I've never heard of that town, but some people may have, and it's just, there's a detail for anybody who's listening and interested in Dale and his brother. Dale, tell, if you would, for those who may be willing to pray for you and this whole situation, would you relate what has happened, including your becoming introduced to the truth going back in about 2012? You don't have to give the details of who and where, but just you began to learn that we should keep the Sabbath. That's one thing I'm sure you learned, and that God has started an end-time work. Let me let you tell it in your own words, if you don't mind.
Well, I found, restored in 2012, and I guess eventually me and my brother looked deeper into it, and we found out about Mr. Armstrong and the offshoots
Mm-hmm.
in the Worldwide Church of God.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know we should work 6 days a week and rest on the Sabbath.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know the Passover, the days of unleavened bread, Pentecost, the Feast of Trumpets, the Day of Atonement, the Feast of Tabernacles, and the last great day is commanded in the Bible.
Yes. Dale, very good. Well, now, Dale, that's it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say thanks.
Well, you're much welcome. It relates to in a way, to something I think of when God was first calling me, going back many decades ago, when I was in Miami, Florida, just getting out of the United States military service. God began to call me, and the local minister came out, interviewed me, invited me to services, but said, now look, you're going to need to apply for your CO from the military, and you need to read the book Military Service and War, which I did, made my application and got out. And I was there a year in the local congregation in Miami. This is back in 1960, end of the 60s. I think that would have been 68 or 69. Yeah, 1969. I was baptized in 1969, just before Feast of Tabernacles. And I came to college in Pasadena in 1970 after having been in the church for 1 year. And that 1 year I learned about everything. I'd already learned the weekly Sabbath, and then I get in church and learn, hey, we're supposed to also be keeping the annual Sabbaths, and they have meaning to them. I'm impressed, though, Dale, that you could rattle off in order the feast days from Leviticus 23, because I remember when I got to college as a freshman in 1970, there was a gal in our freshman class who, after the first semester, toward the end of the first semester, she announced to a few of us that she says, well, guys, I won't be coming back. I won't be here next semester. I'm going home. And we asked her, well, why? Why are you going home? And, well, her coming to college was kind of just a fluke thing. She heard of the college. She had never really heard of the church. And when she got here and found out there was a religion different than what she grew up in, and it became obvious to us that, God was not calling her, and she had no desire to be called. So, and I'm not mentioning her name, but she decided to go home, and she went home. But as she was telling us that, you talk to a person and you ask them, are you sure you want to do this? Because I said, all the holy days, they have meaning to them and all that. And as a freshman and having only been in the church 1 year, and when I came into church in the fall, the first holy days to come up were the Feast of Trumpets, followed by the Day of Atonement, and then the Feast of Tabernacles, and then Last Great Day. So I come in the middle of the movie, so to speak, in the fall, toward the fall festival days. And so I'm trying to relate to this girl. Are you sure, because, boy, we have so much we could be learning about God's plan through the holy days and stuff. And Dale, here's what I'm trying to share with you and the audience. And it's a compliment to you because, of course, you go back to 2012 with God first starting to call you, from what it sounds like to me. So 5-6 years. But with just 1 year under my belt, I'm trying to rattle off the holy days to this girl who's talking about leaving college. And I couldn't even cite them in order. I don't even know if I could cite them at all. I started trying to rattle them off, and I said, oh, yeah, well, what's the rest of those days, and what's the order of them? Of course, I was brand new. I'd only been through the feast days one time, starting in the middle of the year. But Dale, you ran them off. You rattled them off in order. I don't mean to sound it like that, rattle them off, but you ran through the holy days in order, and you sound like you know them. Do you understand the meaning of each of those days?
Well, I think the Lord's Passover is about dying for our sins.
Yes.
The Days of Unleavened Bread is about removing sin from our lives.
Yes.
Pentecost is about when the church, or when the apostles first, like when the early church first received the Holy Spirit.
Yes. All right, now those are our spring holy days, and then we go into the fall holy days.
Well, I think the Feast of Trumpets is about when Jesus Christ returns.
Yes.
The Day of Atonement is about when Satan is removed.
Yes.
I think the Feast of Tabernacles is about the millennium.
Yes, Dale, yes.
And I think the last great day is about when everyone else gets an opportunity for salvation.
Yes, Dale. Outstanding, excellent. I wish I had an audience before us. I could hit an applause button and get you a lot of applause. That was very good. I think those who either are listening live or may hear a recording later will say, hey, that young man has got it right on there. What about your brother, Dale? Is he, what's your brother's name, by the way?
Oh, Patrick?
Patrick. Is Patrick an older or younger brother?
Oh, he's my twin.
Oh, so same age. You guys, you're twin, born on the same day.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I know another set of twins that they grew up in the church, but they're a brother and a sister, as twins. Well, and Patrick, did he become, and he has a similar interest as you? You think God is calling him too?
Yeah.
Did he develop the interest before you, at the same time as you, or a little later than you?
Maybe a little later.
Okay. Did you kind of introduced him to it, or he heard or saw what you were doing, or?
I introduced him to it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Dale, that's good. And sometimes, God works that way in families. Sometimes families. Now, your folks are not favorable or inclined to your beliefs in the truth.
No.
All right, and Dale, and in fact, you've had a little bit, without going too heavy in detail, you've had a little bit of trouble there from relatives where you're living in New York, and with your possessions and things some of them having been damaged, as I understand it, because of some disrespect from family. Am I understanding that correctly, or somewhat correctly?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My older brother tried throwing out part of the camp shower.
Dale, I didn't quite follow that. Your older brother did what? He
tried throwing out part of the camp shower.
Oh, now your shower. Are you saying a camp shower?
Well, I guess when I first bought it, I thought it was like another tent, since I never saw one before. But I guess eventually I guess I learned that it was like another camp shower.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was a camp shower. I guess the person who sold us the stuff said that it was like another tent.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and by shower, it's how you and your brother shower. You shower in that camp shower.
Well, actually, I didn't really use it as a shower. I guess I used it as as another tent.
Oh, as another tent.
Yeah.
Okay. So have you and your brother been camping outside the family home in the backyard?
Well, that's what we did 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we didn't really keep the feast last year.
Okay. Oh, now you're talking about the tent and the thing for during the Feast of Tabernacles, or do you live in that camp tent thing all year?
Oh, just for the Feast of Tabernacles.
Oh, okay. You set that up as just a tabernacle a few of the years.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. If you don't mind my asking, what happened last year that you weren't able to keep the feast?
Well, I guess the parts were scattered in the basement, and I don't know, anywhere that would be safe enough to, set it up anyway.
Oh, yes. And Dale, did you and your brother the year before that, 2 years ago, did y'all set that up in your backyard and you had the little tabernacle right there at home and you kept the feast right there?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm getting the picture. I think I understand what you're saying. All right. One year when I stayed back in Pasadena, when some of us were asked to stay with a lot of brethren coming in from out of town to help serve during the feast, we were told we could stay in our own places, but I went out and bought a tent and I put it inside of my apartment in my living room area, and I slept in the tent in my living room instead of in my bedroom during the feast time, just so that even though we were allowed to stay in our homes, I just wanted to be in a tabernacle, and I set one up inside my apartment. So you guys are doing, under the situation and circumstances while we're scattered, sounds like you're doing the best you can do.
Oh, yeah.
All right, but things have gotten a little bit stressful with family not respecting the things that you've got in the basement. Do y'all live in the basement too, or do you have a room in another part of the house?
Well, we have a room in, I guess, the regular, part of the house.
Oh, on the right side of the house?
Oh, I guess, on another part of the house.
Oh, another part of the house. Okay. And that's your mom and dad's house.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right, Dale. And well, now listen. If we get some help with somebody that may have third tithe they haven't paid that they've accumulated, and say, hey, I can buy y'all a ticket. If or however we might be able to work out being able to get you guys down here. Let me ask you, how long did you want to stay? Are you mainly interested in learning things that would be kind of like being in a small local version of Ambassador College under my training? Are you interested in helping with the live stream? What are you just looking for relief to move somewhere because of the stress you're in? Can you give me an idea that people can relate to what your hopes and dreams are in moving, if we can get you moved from New York to Alabama here?
Or I guess I don't really know how long I want to stay.
You say you don't know how long you'd want to stay?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. Of course, till you see how things go, I can understand that. But what's the main reason that you were wanting to leave from there?
Well, I guess, to keep the Feast of Tabernacles, and you said something about close personal training.
Yes, you are interested in that.
And I wanted to help you with the live streams.
Yes, Dale. Well, I'm glad to hear you say that, and I'll tell you why I say that. And that's because I for a long time I've been praying and asking God, please send me some help. This is just, I don't mind. I'm glad to do this, but as you can see, I'm getting a little bit worn out. There's so much to do by myself that I would sure appreciate some help. So if God has worked the circumstances, Dale, with you and your brother too, where you guys would welcome a change of pace and you would like to help with this and receive some personal training, that could be a double blessing. A blessing for you guys, blessing for me, and it could be triple blessing for anybody else who says, that sounds like a good idea to me. We appreciate Steve's ministry. We see him struggling with it. We see him holding fast. We see him not starting some blankety blank this or that banana peeling Church of God group and calling it such that people feel like, oh yeah, we're just part of the Church of God that slid over from Mr. Armstrong, which I constantly state, look, I understand we are scattered. That's where people, brethren, should understand has happened to us. God has not picked a replacement for either the pastor general that was passed over to the Takachas, and none of them ever qualified for a true apostleship. One of them wanted to be an apostle very badly, and some say, well, yeah, he did make it. There is such a thing as a false apostle. A lot of us loved Mr. Takach Sr. Some of us even have a love and respect for Junior, especially since he's been not as rambunctious or impatient as some that work around him are to try to push the Sabbath keepers, away from their assets and administration, which they've sold off most of the assets, and the administration has done a flip-flop. They've even taken the name Church of God out of the corporate name of the assets. So they've shown where they are. They've shown that they're not going to be the new apostle. They're not, unless God does what he did with the Saul, who became the apostle Paul. After killing a lot of Christians, there was a dramatic miracle done there that at first a lot of brethren were kind of suspicious of and scared of, for good reason. But unless God were to do some miracle like that, the new administration people have shown that they have no love or respect for God's truth. In fact, they've tried to turn the truth into a lie. And so where we are today, they've welcomed these ministers who wanted to go out and start blankety-blank this or that banana-peeling churches of God. They even assisted them and helped them in doing that, because then they could freely take the assets and sell them, and have nobody fighting them over that. And it was kind of sad to see that more brethren didn't stay united and wait for God to show where to move, if at all. And at this point, this is my take on it. If anybody, if you disagree with me, I'll listen to you. And if you got a valid point, I'll agree with it. If not, I'll continue to believe what I understand after a lot of prayer and fasting, that God has left us scattered and that he's not in favor of all of these denominated and named blankety-blank this or that blankety-blank banana-peeling Church of God groups. And when we talk about it, Dale, when we're public, I try to not mention names of these groups, because there are some brethren that fellowship here and there, and even though I'll kind of, in a certain way, speak out against what the ministers who've started these groups have done, I try to be careful to not overstep on the toes of people they don't know what to do except follow the last minister they had, and a place to fellowship with brethren. And that might be a good thing for a lot of them. And as God maybe shows them otherwise, I need to move you out of there. I need you to stop financing that thing that is confusing a lot of brethren who God begins to call, like yourselves. And you look around and you see, why all these banana peeling, blankety-blank, this and that Church of God groups, several hundred. And like a fellow in Tennessee that went through the entire Ambassador College Bible Correspondence course and said, I'm not having anything to do with any of y'all that have named groups, because that just creates confusion. And I didn't have a named group, and he was speaking to me with such anger. It was almost like he felt I was responsible for helping some of them start. No, and I had to let him know, look, I have nothing to do with, and I don't encourage those who've started those groups. Yeah, well, they confuse everybody. And that's not the Church of God, because God says, I will build my church, not churches. And anyway, I just thought I'd clarify that, and yet at the same time say I like to be careful. I might have maybe done it once or twice, once in a while, in kind of a jesting way, but making a reference to groups that claim to be united, but they're not really. And I know that uses a name that some have selected, but they've used so many hundreds of adjectives, it almost makes it impossible to speak without stumbling over one of those adjectives that are modifiers to group names, that are calling themselves the blankety-blank this or blankety-blank Church of God group. All right, I didn't mean to I didn't mean to put a sermon in here between us, but I did want to clarify that. And just ask you to be careful if we're mentioning back your history of how you first learned. Sometimes some of these groups, they put Mr. Armstrong's material out there, and people can learn from that, and God can call from that. And I'm actually thankful for the many brethren who've had access to this tape or that tape of Mr. Armstrong speaking during a sermon somewhere where they recorded it, or even the Bible, even the broadcast, radio and television broadcast. I'm glad those are so readily available for people, because as I try to do on this program, I always try to keep Mr. Armstrong in there. It's best, since God is still using him as if it were from the grave, as if he were speaking from the grave. It's good for us to hear the end-time apostle. God has not replaced him, and God is still using him because of having preserved all those recordings and all those publications. Are we together on that, Dale? Pretty much?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. All right, Dale, if we're able to get you here, and as you get to know me, I hope you'll be enthusiastic, as I am, to try to stay faithful, holding fast to what God taught through Mr. Armstrong, and not coloring it, or... All right, we're getting an interrupting call here. But, Dale, all right, we're going to have to wrap up, because that may be my neighbor. We have a fencing problem, and my donkey may have gotten out. Will you hang on a second? Dale, hang.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, hello? Is the horse out?
I wanted to tell you, I walked up there to check on the horse.
Yes, sir.
That horse ain't got a drop of water up there.
Oh, you know what? I emptied out the bucket because of a bunch of leaves. Thank you. Right now, so I hope you don't mind. I answered the phone. You're on my live stream with me. I will finish off this live stream and run down there quickly and turn the water on for that bucket. I got a hose in it. All I got to do is turn it on here from the house and fill it up.
All right.
Thank you for letting me know.
Okay.
Appreciate you. Love you, Gerald.
All right.
All right, talk to you later. Okay, Dale, you there? Dale, did I make it back to you? Oh, I think we may have lost Dale. Dale, if you tuned in or hear this later, I'm sorry we lost you. That was my neighbor, as I suspected, but it was a different problem than I suspected. He walked up to where I pulled over he wanted my horse and donkey on his land so that it would help with several acres he has, eat the grass there. And I cooperate with my neighbor. He's been a good neighbor. He's somebody I give God thanks for having a good neighbor like this fellow. But he's been having some health issues. He can't ride his tractor around the way he used to, and he's asked me would I loan him my horse and donkey to clean up a couple of acres of field area. And I said, sure, Gerald, I've let him over there. And I drug my water tank for the horse over there so that the horse could stay in his field and clean it up for him and have water. But I emptied it out and forgot to refill it. So let me sign off. And Dale, did we get you back at all? Let me try this again. Hey, Dale, are you there? Hello, hello? All right, when I took that other call, it looks like we lost Dale. So, but I think that covered pretty much an introduction of Dale to you friends. Dale Karikas. His brother is Patrick. They want to come here, and you heard one of the reasons was he wanted to take me up on some personal training, spiritually, even ministerial training for him, like a mini ambassador college, since we don't really have one in the same respect that we had it as before when Mr. Armstrong was alive anywhere. There's some that have mimicked it to some degree, and compliments to those who've maybe done a good job with that kind of thing. But it's under organizations that have compromised the truth. You see their reports and their studies and their research studies, and they poo-poo what Mr. Armstrong said. They say, we're using human reasoning, and we're reasoning around what Mr. Armstrong taught. I don't do that here. If you catch me doing anything like that, I welcome you to correct me, preferably privately, so give me a chance to repent of it and then announce it myself that, hey, somebody corrected me on this. I looked it up. They were right. I was wrong. I'll repent. But I'm trying my best to be careful and follow Mr. Armstrong, so it's highly unlikely, unless I just do a tongue slip, that you're going to find me off base anywhere. I fast often to ask God, keep me humble. Don't let me rise up and get big-headed and try to start a highfalutin thing that you're not into, Father. So, if these couple of fellows come down here, I'm sure they will help me. They are interested in the truth. They followed one group for a while till they found out, and Dale was telling me in private conversation earlier that this one group he named to me, he said, the guy's a false prophet. And sadly, some of you ministers that are doing this or that out there, especially those of you that denominate and do what Mr. Armstrong said don't do. He reminded us that we weren't even members of the Radio Church of God, as he said in 1956, and then later in the 1980s, after the name had been changed in 1968 to Worldwide Church of God, from radio to Worldwide Church of God, for its assets, for its corporate name. He said, none of you who put your hands up, how many of you are members of the Worldwide Church of God? More than half the hands went up. He said, put your hands down. First of all, he said, raise them up high now if you're a member of the Worldwide Church of God. And he got those who were committing in any way at all to raise their hands high. Others who didn't put up their hands decided, I better raise my hand. They stuck them up high too. But not everybody did. And some wisely knew Mr. Armstrong, either they had heard what he said in 1956 or knew the principle and knew where Mr. Armstrong was probably going. And that's why I didn't raise my hand. I kind of knew where he was going with that. I just had a gut feeling about it all. God let me know early, 3 years before Mr. Armstrong changed it, that Pentecost should be on Sunday, not Monday. And I was, during those 3 years, keeping both Sunday and Monday. I obeyed the leadership that God had bound in heaven, that you keep Pentecost on Monday, while the leader was saying, do it that way. And there was no conflict with anything else by doing that on Monday. And there was no conflict by also privately keeping it on Sunday, that I saw from Leviticus 23, verse 16, hey, this should be kept on Sunday. And if I'm wrong, God, correct me. If I'm right, correct the whole church through your leader from the top down. So we get it from the top down, not somebody from the bottom up. And I was the very bottom then. So other than talking to a senior who was our dorm monitor, asking him privately, Russ, why does this look like to me it ought to be Sunday? What's wrong with me? And he said, well, you're not the first one to come up with that. An evangelist has gone to Mr. Armstrong 20 years before, and Mr. Armstrong didn't buy it, and he said, and I want to graduate, Stephen. And I got his point. This is a hot potato. None of us students are going to convince Mr. Armstrong if an evangelist couldn't convince him. And he said, I want to graduate. He was telling me, this is a hot potato. You try to make a big deal out of this to Mr. Armstrong, you'll be out of here probably. And so I saw the wisdom was, if an evangelist had already gone, and Mr. Armstrong still believed it should be Monday and was saying keep it on Monday, you follow the leadership, you get on your knees before God, you say, God, if I'm wrong, correct me. If I'm right the way I'm seeing this verse, then correct the whole church. And he did 3 years later after a lot of earnest prayer. But you keep your conscience. If you believe it should be on Sunday when the leader's saying it should be on Monday, you keep Sunday, and you follow the leader too and keep Monday. Now, if it's a weekly Sabbath issue and the leader's saying keep Sunday, keep the day of Baal worship, that's a whole nother issue. And the leaders that were doing that were showing themselves against something God's definitely said do. Keep the Sabbath, and that's described in Scripture as the seventh day of the week. And no confusion, no verse that would, like verse 15 of Leviticus 23 that had the word from in there, that would cause the leader to legitimately think we should be counting from the wave sheaf day instead of beginning with the wave sheaf day. That's a whole big issue. And I got to go put some, even though this is Sabbath, I got an ox in the ditch. I got a horse without water. Same thing, ox in the ditch. horse's hot day of starving thirsty is likely to break the fence down over no water if I don't go turn on the water. And beside, we lost Dale, and I think we've covered, that's what I wanted to do with this interview at the end of this live stream. I've recorded this so I can put it on for you later so I can introduce some of you to Dale. And I will ask you this, brethren. Dale and his brother would like to get away. They'd like to be down here by Feast of Tabernacles time, maybe even get them here before Day of Atonement. If some of you are sitting on a hunk of third tithe money you haven't known what to do with, if some of you are ignoring your third tithe year, you're ignoring blessings. God promises a bountiful blessing if you will be faithful in keeping your third tithe. And that's money not for the ministry to use for any of its ministry stuff. That's for money to be used for helping brethren in need. And if some of you are sitting on a pile of that, or if you just got money, you'd be willing to help get these fellows from a stressful situation with people showing disrespect to their belongings. They'd like to get here and do some training under this ministry and to help this ministry with the nightly World Watch Sunday through Thursday newscast and help us with these streams on the Sabbath. Oh, that'd be a wonderful thing to have that help, have the fellows be learning more. You hear he's got a good handle on the holy days and what they mean, just off the cuff. And look, we're all human. There are going to be some problems to deal with, but we all learn to be as gentle with others as we would want people to be with us as we're learning and growing. And so, brethren, if some of you are able to help these fellows get their bus ticket to get down here, I got the trailer, place where they can live. It needs a little fixing up. There's some things we're going to have to do. They might be able to help with that. There are some things I'm going to have to buy. I let somebody in there who stay in there who never paid me any money and tore up the bathroom. And that wasn't the fellow we rescued from the Philippines, by the way. That was somebody else I let stay in there for a little bit, and they didn't pay me any money. They tore up the bathroom and then left. And so I got some things I got to fix. But I would use, if you got enough help for them to get them here and a little left over, I would fix that up for them with that. I wouldn't see any problem with that. And I'd be grateful for the help. Their help would be in exchange for them being able to stay right there. And I've got food I could share with them, although we might be eating tight belt for a little bit while we work out. I may even, if they're helping me get our programs together, I might be able to take another job. When I was in high school, I worked as many as 3 jobs at one time while I was in high school. And even while I was in college, and I made A's at the time, I worked 20 hours a week in the television studio, and then 5 nights a week, 4 nights a week, 4 nights a week, 4 hours a night, and plus on top of that, 16 hours in a dance studio. 36 hours I worked, that's 4 hours short of full-time work, and was a full-time student at college at the same time. I was on probation because of my dingbat, mediocre high school grades, where I worked 3 jobs while in high school, and if I couldn't get the homework done while I was at school because of the 3 jobs I worked, no homework got done outside of being at the school. And so my grades were mediocre, including an F I got in biology. I had to go take that at another school because that biology teacher required a bug collection and a leaf collection, something you had to do outside class at the college, and I couldn't do it. So I just went and took biology. I transferred 1 year to another school in the same district and completed biology at a school where you didn't have to do a bug collection and a leaf collection. And I was able to graduate. Then I transferred back to my regular high school and used the biology from the other high school to graduate. And it made my grades mediocre because I had these 2 Fs averaged into my grades from flunking biology because I didn't do the leaf collection and the bug collection. Anyway, I was on probation in college, but I made A's and worked 2 jobs on top of that. I was determined not to be thrown out of college. And yet worked 2 jobs. And so what was I telling you all that for? I may be able to do this ministry, work another job. If I got a couple of fellows here I'm training, they help line things up while I'm working the other job to help have enough food on the table for all three of us while we build this little ministry and of service and love. And we'll see how long and if that works out, if God's willing. And if some of you are sitting on some money you could help these guys get here, you can either send it to them direct, say, "Hey guys, buy your ticket," or since you don't know them, you can do it through this ministry if you run it through the holydayoffering.com. Let me see. Will that bring it up, or should I just ask you to look for the Holy Day Offering menu on our main page, cogtv.org? Any money that comes in other than on the Holy Day, I will consider it to be as third tithe help to get these fellows moved out of a persecution situation and into a situation of training and helping these live streams, which for those of you who tune in here can be a help to you. So if any of you are sitting on any money that should be third tithe offering or that could be used as an offering to help brethren in need, it would be appreciated and put to good use, very good use, if you provide it to get Dale and his brother Patrick Karikas here to Alabama to the trailer I have in the back. And we'll have some problems we'll have to wrestle around, but hey, such is life. All right, friends, this is Sabbath day, 28th day of the 6th month, 2 days before, or kind of just day before, 2 days before Feast of Trumpets starts, Sunday night at sunset. And Dale, sorry I lost your call, but maybe when I got the other call, you probably figured we'd talked enough. Or either we lost you, if we just lost you, I'm sorry, I apologize. Or if you hung up, it's okay. I think you did a great interview. People get to know you a little bit, and I hope some will be touched in the heart, moved to help, because I've got equipment here that needs repairs, and every dime out of my 2 paychecks, my Social Security and my military pension that I can put toward repairing this equipment we use for live stream and all that, I'm doing that. I'm fixing the roof that's leaking that has gotten within 6 to 8 inches of our live streaming equipment in the room behind me with money that my sister is loaning me interest-free to have some metal roofing put on the roof up above. Now, she's only offered me so much, and the 2 quotes I got so far are not enough to cover it. So, nobody of late has been helping us with offerings in this ministry. I never ask except on holy days, and we're 2 days before a holy day, so I'm kind of priming some of you to say, listen, get on your knees before God and ask God, where should I be sending my tithes? Should I be sending it to the ministry that Stephen Gilbreth, that you're doing, dear God, through Stephen Gilbreth? And brethren, I'm hoping that God's answer back to you will be very clear and say, definitely help out and help him get these young fellows down here to help serve and learn and train, and help him get the equipment he's needing repairing fixed so he can keep up the daily news service to you through World Watch Sunday through Thursday night and the Friday night Bible study on the beginning of the Sabbath, Friday evening, and on Sabbath morning with the Sabbath service, AM to the U.S., PM to the U.K., where brethren have asked me, please get the Sabbath service on for us here in the U.K. that you do. We like it, but we want you to get it on before the sun sets, Stephen. So when I do it in the afternoon, the sun is already set over there. I have to get up and do it early in the morning, like I did this morning at 9:30 a.m. Central Time. That makes it 2:30 p.m. in the afternoon in the U.K. All right, brethren, there's my pitch to you. I did give you a pitch that I rarely ever do, but Holy Day offering time is coming up. And if you send some in early, I will use it to help get Dale and his brother Patrick down here to Alabama. And especially if you got third tithe, you owe God, you are losing a blessing if you don't do something God would respect with that money offering that belongs to him. Your first tithe belongs to him. I heard a woman complaining the other day, I've been giving all my money to the, or not all my money, but I've been giving my money to, not to here, but she's complaining about some ministry where she was giving it where they have a denominated name, and now she's all upset about that. You need to be praying and fasting and before you give your money and reading the book, Ending Your Financial Worries, and making sure God is guiding and leading you. I ask people to do that, so if you're giving here, I don't want you coming back at me later and saying, oh, blah, blah, blah. I'm saying, look, I ask you to pray and fast before you send any money here and ask God where you should be sending it and let him guide you in that. Read the book in which he instructs you how to make that determination. And very few on their own have ever decided to tithe or make an offering here. There have been a few, but they're not regular. They're just once in a blue moon type thing. Oh, well, I'll hit you here. Boom. And I don't know what you're doing with your tithe money the rest of the time. That's between you and God. But that is not your money. That woman that said, I gave my money over here. Look, when you do it in good faith and you send it where you believe you should send it, it's not your responsibility how that minister uses or misuses it. Now, if you find out he's misusing it, then you go back to God and say, hey, I think you need to direct me somewhere else. And he probably will then. He's not going to hold you accountable for the minister's misdoing. If you do it in good faith, you've asked God beforehand, before you send it, where should I send it? You get the answer, you say, yeah, him or him or him. And I'm not saying I'm the only place you could send it. If you got a minister serving you in your area, support him. If you've prayed, fasted about it, and say, Father, this man is holding fast over here, and he serves me, he helps me. Well, then that's probably a good place. God's probably going to say, yes, give your tithe over to that minister over there. He's serving you. He's holding fast. He hasn't started any denominated blankety-blank this or blankety-blanket that banana-peeling Church of God group, which causes confusion and division. And if some of you get good fellowship in those places, go. But ask God, should I be putting my money here? God will probably tell you no. Give it to some minister over here, over there. Continue the fellowship and see how long they keep it up without your tithe, and see if you don't hear them start banging on the lectern and raving about, hey, brethren, you need to tithe here. Yeah, and then your brethren come back at him and say, yeah, but you need to take the name off of this group. You shouldn't be calling this the blankety-blank, this or that Church of God, because you're confusing everybody and dividing us who should be understanding that we are scattered. That's the way God has left us. We're in a dangerous situation. We are scattered. And at some point, when God sees that there are enough people obeying Christ's instruction in Luke 21:36, he is going to perform the two promises there. The main one in time order, the one in time order to account certain people worthy to escape as the fifth seal opens up. And then the remnant that's left behind, they're going to be instructed in Revelation 3:18 to buy of God. How does that say that? Revelation 3:18. I should read that to you before we close up. Very important, because some of you are not obeying Christ's instruction in Luke 21:36 to be watching and praying always. And you're going to be shocked. Oh, I kept the Sabbath. I kept all the annual feast days and went to the best feast sites I could find in the whole world. And we're keeping the commandments of God and the testimonies of God. And God's going to say, yeah, but did you do what Christ said in Luke 21:36? Did you watch and pray always? No, my minister said we don't need to do that. It didn't work under Mr. Armstrong, so, we don't need to do that. Oh, well, what about Christ's words where he said you do need to do it? And then that is the prerequisite for being accounted worthy to escape. Oh, well, I didn't think that meant anything. Well, you lukewarm son of a snake. You're left behind with the remnant now, and I counsel you. Revelation 3:18, Christ's words. He says, I counsel you to buy of me gold tried in the fire, the fiery trial of martyrdom, that you may be rich instead of poor, blind, naked, and miserable, thinking you're a hot shot when all you are really is a big pile of SNOT. I just wanted to spell it. I didn't want to say it. And you can still buy your way into the kingdom because you blew it on not following all of God's instruction. You are considered part of the Church of God, but you're considered part of the era of martyrdom. The Laodicean era is not here yet. Mr. Armstrong said it begins when the fifth seal, Great Tribulation of martyrdom, begins. After that begins. And that's backed up by Scripture. Scripture tells you. The central verse to the Laodiceans is verse 18 of Revelation 3. I counsel you to buy of me gold tried in the fire. And that means the fiery trial of martyrdom. And the Great Tribulation is not here yet. The martyrdom is not here yet. You still have a chance if you have a Laodicean attitude, as many people do. That doesn't mean the era's here yet. That just means you've got the attitude for that era. But there's time to repent and turn around that attitude. You can, with God's help, transpose that to an attitude of hot Philadelphia. Watch and pray always. We hope you do that Sunday through Thursday night. I can't do your prayer for you. You got to do that part yourself. Pray, watch, and pray always, all the time, with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind. We encourage you to do that during our World Watch telecast Sunday through Thursday night. Now, we won't be on Sunday night, tomorrow night, because that's the beginning of the Feast of Trumpets, so we'll take a break for trumpets. We won't be on Monday night because trumpets doesn't end until sunset, and that would cross over to our preparation for the night broadcast. We'll plan to be back on World Watch Tuesday night. And then, God willing, we'll be back on Sabbath.tv on the Sabbath service page of Facebook Live. Today I'm for a little bit, I've been on the homepage, my news feed on my homepage on Facebook Live, and we may put this on YouTube and on Vimeo, a few other places, archive. I may play it on Sabbath.tv and maybe even the weekly bulletin as a second live stream, just to introduce people to Dale and his brother Patrick, who it would be appreciated if we can get them here. Brother, got to sign off. It's getting hot in the studio, and my poor horse down there needing water. As you heard my neighbor call and say, "Hey, you got no water in that bucket." It's a huge 100-gallon bucket. I poured it out to get all the leaves out of it, and I came back to the house, forgot to turn the water on and fill it back up. So, all right. They've been without water all day today, so I'm going to go in this, turn on their water, get out of this coat and out of this hot studio. But thank you for those of you who joined me to hear about Dale and his brother Patrick. See if we can get them some help. And if you're not able to help, at least give them prayers. And ask God, if it's His will, to work this out, to help us get the fellows down here and start some training. And have a place where they're welcome. And hopefully we can all just get along together real nice. And you'll see an improvement in my programs if I'm getting help and I'm not feeling like I'm just all worn out by the time I got to throw the switch and I'm trying to think of everything. I can get some people watching some other stuff for me where I can focus on just talking to you. That'd be nice. That'd be real nice, brethren. So hope you'll put your prayers in about it. If that's all you're able to do, that'll mean a lot. And otherwise, that God might move some who are sitting on a fat wallet full of third tithe that you are missing a blessing for because you haven't provided it, where you would be able to help brethren who need help and keep the promise you made at baptism that you would obey God. And one of His things you got to obey is you got to keep your third tithe. You got to know the year you were baptized to figure out when your third tithe years are. Some of you don't even know. If somebody asks you, what year were you baptized? You go, I don't know. That should come out of your mouth faster than snap, because you should be figuring and checking and rechecking when your third tithe years are falling. They fall in your third, sixth year of the first 7-year cycle. You take a sabbatical in the 7th year and then start counting again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Take a 7-year sabbatical. And then in the next cycle, it's the 3rd year, the 6th year, take a 7th year sabbatical, start counting another 7-year cycle. And you count all that from the year in which you were baptized. If you were baptized before Passover, you count that year as year number 1. If you were baptized on Passover or after, then you don't start counting your first year until the Feast of Tabernacles. To Feast of Tabernacles. That's when we count the years for third tithe. And so you include the year you were baptized in if you were baptized before Passover. Otherwise, you count the year that begins at Feast of Tabernacles in the year you were baptized. All right, make sense? If not, you can contact me. I'll try to help you with that privately. Just tell me the date you were baptized. I'll tell you how it works and tell you what is your first year, and then second, third year, and then fourth, fifth, sixth year, and then seventh year take a sabbatical, and then you should be able to plot it out in a spreadsheet or just on a sheet of paper when your third and sixth, third tithe years fall in each 7-year cycle. And if you've been in the church a long time and you've gone through 7-year cycles, hey, guess what? God gives you an extra sabbatical called a Jubilee on the 50th year. All right, brethren, you should be doing that. You're losing a huge blessing if you're not doing it, and brethren are suffering if you're not doing it too. There are brethren who legitimately need help, like Patrick and Dale. Dale, they being twins, being the same age, Dale and Patrick. All right, brethren, that's on behalf of Dale and Patrick Karikas. This is Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth. I'm going to say have a good rest of the Sabbath, the little bit it is. I'm going to go put some water in my horse's tank, and we'll see you here, God willing, next time on World Watch. No, we'll see. We'll see you here. Next time we'll see you here will be Feast of Trumpets morning, Monday morning, September 10, 9:30 a.m. Central Time, 12 to 2:30 p.m. in the afternoon in the UK, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time, and figure it from there wherever you are. Watching in the archive later in the day, we'll be doing a Feast of Trumpets day 2 days from today on Monday morning, September 10. Until next time, friends, Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth, thanks for joining me. Shabbat Shalom.